Welcome back to SPAN. I've never seen SPAN so tan. It's probably because of this. My name is Mark Davis, and I am honored to be the president of SPAN, and it's just thrilling to have our summer program at capacity. We've never had a summer program this big. Usually people are away on vacation, but thanks for not going on vacation and being at SPAN. Our mission at SPAN, as you know, is to learn firsthand from philanthropists how they give, why they give, who they give to, and what motivates them. So we're going to hear firsthand today from Kenny and Marleen Alhadeff about why they do what they do, which is so significant in our city. And that conversation will be led by Kevin O'Keefe from Morgan Stanley. We do have a process here at SPAN for those that have never been before, and today we have 37 people, a record of new attendees that have never been. So I'd like for all new attendees of SPAN, please, to stand up at this time, and we'll give you a big round of applause. And we very much hope that this won't be your last SPAN meeting. I wanted to give you a heads up on our November 3rd program. It will be with Jeff and Tricia Rakes. For those of you that know Jeff and Tricia, this is the first time that they're going to be out talking about what they do. So thanks to Randy Ottinger, who will be leading that conversation, we will be thrilled to have them. So for those of you that are new to SPAN, we serve lunch after the conversation. I know some of you are conversing over there already, but we're going to have a conversation after lunch. So enjoy your salads, enjoy your rolls, and then lunch will be served. So we want to have a really good focus, of course, on the speakers. And we are filming today. So for those of you that have questions of the Alhadeffs, be sure to speak up loudly so we can be sure to get those on tape. As you know, we have a very active board, and the board meeting will be held after today, but thrilled to have our newest board member with us today. Where's Jeff Clark? I know he's here. Jeff, could you stand up for a minute? Jeff is the CEO of Philanthropy Northwest. He moved to Seattle a year and a half ago with his wife, Chris. They were very involved in the Rasmussen Foundation in Anchorage, which is the largest family foundation in Anchorage. It's a $600 million foundation. And Philanthropy Northwest somehow pulled him out of Anchorage, and he landed in our beautiful city. So I'd like everybody to give Jeff an applause for joining our board. Before we get started with the conversation, I do want to recognize, as I always do, our SPAN sponsors. Without SPAN sponsors, we would not have SPAN. So for those of you that would like to join SPAN as a sponsor, please let me know. But this time we just have a fantastic group of sponsors, including a new one, who I'll get to in a minute. Alan Biller, Andalcare, Clark Nuber, Cornerstone, Filament, and thanks to Aya Hamilton, Goldman Sachs is now a sponsor. Helsel Fetterman, Laird Norton, Morgan Stanley, National Christian Foundation, Pacific Continental Bank, PC Calc, Pratt Legacy Advisors, Seattle Children's Hospital Foundation, the Seattle Foundation, Social Venture Partners, Wellspring Group with Judy Korshan, and Whittier Trust Company. Please give our sponsors a big hand. And now, without further ado, we're starting right at 12:15, Kevin. We have Kevin O'Keefe, Senior Managing Director at Morgan Stanley, who's going to be leading the conversation today with the Alhadeffs and introducing them. He works very closely with foundations, endowments, as well as private investment trust companies, and has been in our business for a long time in Seattle, and we're thrilled that Kevin asked Marleen and Kenny to speak today. So buckle your seatbelts. We're going to have a great time. Please welcome Kevin O'Keefe, Marleen, and Kenny.
Well, thank you very much, Mark, for the nice introduction. I'm very honored to be here today to facilitate this conversation with Ken and Marleen. I've known Ken and Marleen for over 20 years, so quite a while, and just very happy to be here. But let's just get right into it, Ken. How did you meet Marleen, and why did you start a foundation?
Well, those are really good questions, Kevin. And I would be delighted to answer them. But let me just start by telling you how honored and privileged and thrilled we are to be here with you today. You know we're sitting in a room with people who get it, that collectively we can do what individually we can't, that the human spirit needs nurturing and support, that for all we're told about how bad we are, there is so much more about how good we are and can be, and we need to hold each other's hands and hearts and minds and march towards that light of decency and humanity. And this event and you are a big part of that march. I met Marleen Magnoni on the steps of Mason's Furniture. I met her on March 21st of 1980. My dear lifetime friend, Bobby Mason, set me up on a date. He said, she's beautiful, she's funny, she's smart, and you're gonna love her. He was right about all four of those things. And it has been a 31-year marriage and a 34-year love affair that keeps growing and changing. Thank you. And Marleen will speak plenty, but she is the antithesis of what Gandhi said. My actions will speak so loud, my words won't need to be heard. And she speaks with her actions every day, and her words. So the foundation, from my standpoint, and then Marleen will share. I was blessed to grow up in a family that's now a 7-generation Seattle family, and was taught at an early age that we had a responsibility to each other, that having financial resources, positions of power and authority were an opportunity and an obligation towards the greater good. And the only use of those things was in that collective spirit. I learned from my parents as they would go to the symphony and the ballet and the rep and the children's hospital and Planned Parenthood and the food bank. I just watched and learned what mattered. My mother was a very graceful woman. She had elegance and style and charm. She grew up at a time where those things were just absolutely spectacular, but she wasn't a snoot or a la-di-da. She didn't think she was better than anybody else. She just looked the part. She had a long neck and was always divinely attired. And if any of you knew her, and I asked you to describe Joni Alhadeff with an animal, you'd say a swan. Well, my mama got Alzheimer's disease, and it ripped away that grace and elegance. And it was the most difficult thing I have been through, because I couldn't fix it. I was down on the water on Lake Washington on a cold February morning of 1976, praying, crying, dealing with it. And I looked out into the mist, and back in the mid-90s, the Canadian geese had overtaken our lake. And one of those Canadian geese, I thought, started coming out of the mist directly towards me. So I walked out on the dock with watery, squinty eyes and started to realize that that was not a Canadian goose. That was a huge white swan. I've lived on the lake 60 years. There are no swans on Lake Washington. The swan came up to the dock as close as I am to Marleen, and the swan went. turned and swam away, and I got it. My mother's grace and elegance was forever, and it wasn't bound by that disease. And I should remember her and honor her in the beautiful spirit that she is. And I went up and I told the story to Marleen and our daughters. And my older daughter, our older daughter, Allie, said, "Papa, take me to see that swan." I said, "Baby, the swan is gone." She said, "Take me." We went down to the dock. And of course, the swan wasn't there. But the mist was still on the lake. It was rising. We talked about her grandma, why she didn't know who she was, why she was in a wheelchair, why she was agitated. She pulled away from me and walked out to the end of the dock. She looked out into that mist and simply said, "Please come back." And every word of this is true. A couple minutes later, out of the mist came this huge, single white swan. Swans mate for life. My parents had been married over 50 years. My father had died a year and a half before. Swans do not engage people. This swan came right back to the dock, did not cast eyes on me, cast eyes on my daughter. Turned and swam away, and my mama died the next day. It just seemed fitting to start a foundation with the swan as a logo, and with the theme of it being lifting the human spirit. Why a foundation? With all the complications and structure and reporting, it's about permanency and legacy. It's about putting a stake in the ground and saying, this is where we stand. It is not about the size of that foundation. Those will fluctuate and change. The rules, the regulations, the parameters, all to be decided, but why set it up? To be a foundation for generations, to make a statement. Why do you think we started a foundation?
Is it on? Okay, great. Thank you all for coming. This is so great. I thought to myself, Kevin, they want us to talk about philanthropy, but I'm sure everyone in this room already knows about philanthropy. And we're here for you. I think we started a foundation. We talk about journey in life. We're all on a journey. And the acronym comes to mind for me, ROVE, which means journey. So the first letter being relationship. And we have relationship with those that we experience life with. And that has to do with you. All of you have relationship with somebody you're working with. And in that relationship, we grow. And when we find out what it is that people care about, what they're passionate about, and we care about them, then we care about what we want to support in life, even if it's for a moment, and even if it's just a year, to really learn about something you didn't know about before, and you become educated. So relationship. And then we look at outcomes. If we're looking at how we're involved, then we need to know that what we're doing is making a difference. So we're looking at what the outcome will be, and if we're functioning well. And that outcome can be financial, it can be personal, it could be spiritual. There's so many elements in that outcome. And then values and ethics, how we function in life. I'm Italian, Irish, Catholic girl, married to a nice Greek, Jewish boy. The Judeo-Christian element really drives us.
But that's not the problem in the relationship. It's she's a husky and I'm a cougar.
That's a problem.
That's a problem.
And so the values and ethics that you function in, you know, your word being your bond, your way you function, does it follow your mission statement? these are a way to live, because then you'd never have to second guess yourself. And finally, education. Anything that we do in life should educate the public in some way, no matter what it is. And there are so many ways to educate. So this promotes the concept of building a foundation to rove, to have that journey, and to move forward with it in the greatest way through our relationships with you.
Wow, that was good.
Thank you very much, Ken and Marleen, for making it easy for me. Anyway, so, and it's so true. I mean, they've introduced me to so many things like youth care, Operation Night Watch. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And I love those. But Marleen, you were chair of the Early Childhood Learning Foundation. And tell us about that and about your work with the Children's Museum.
Okay, I was chair of the Foundation for Early Learning, which the Gates Foundation supported with $10 million to focus on evolving. Melinda Gates and Mona Locke, when Gary Locke was governor, focused on early learning and did a study for the state of Washington to see exactly what the effect of early learning would take hold and whether it had value to invest in. And obviously, they were looking at what can the outcomes be? Is this worth investing in? And that's the organization I was in and spent 9 years in, and really became educated about our state in regards to education, which we've just been moved up to a grade letter of C from a D+. Let's go, Washington. And we began to learn that the early learning aspect, 0 through 5, is the most critical time that you can make the biggest difference, the brain growth, the cognitive, social, emotional, really, pardon me, really can catapult our community through business and education. And from there, I served my full term, 9 years, and moved to the Children's Museum. Thank you for coming. Didn't want to tell about this, so you sneaky devil, you. The Children's Museum, Kenny and I became involved in many, many years ago because I was one of the women that were older, having children. Most of my contemporaries had almost teenagers by the time I got married and was having children. And the Children's Museum was a way that my husband and I could bring our young children to a place where they could interact with a diverse group and really enrich our lives through play. And so we invested in, I believe it was 93, in the museum and economically, and it catapulted forward for a while. And they kept wanting me on the board, and I'm not like Kenny, where he can do many things at one time. He's a visionary, and I'm more detailed-oriented and narrow and deep. So I joined the board. It'll be 6 years ago, March, and the beauty of this particular organization is that it belongs to the public here, and we have an opportunity to play at many levels and learn at the same time. And playfulness is really something we forget about doing. And it's critical to education. And much of what we do there, you can take home with you. And though low income is certainly a group of people that have advantages at the museum, everyone benefits at the museum. Because in a city who has the largest quantity of private schools in a city, in the nation, because our education is poor, we need to not forget that being in the public is critical and that we need to stay connected to the world. And the museum, if you go, please do, by the way, we have a breakfast coming up, and I have cards here.
Really?
Yes, and we have an incredible speaker. His name is Ed Viesters. And Ed Viesters is a risk management fellow who speaks
he actually is, let me say this, he's the only American to have climbed 14 of the world's 8,000-meter peaks, and only the 6th man to do so without supplemental oxygen.
And that's risk management?
Yes, and he speaks on risk management, teamwork, goal setting, and perseverance. So that applies to all of you in here. So, and you get up early at 7:30, and you're done by 9, and you can visit the museum, and I just have to say, you won't be disappointed. Bring your grandchildren, bring your friends' kids, bring your own kids, because you'll have a gas, and you'll learn a lot. So thank you for asking.
Good job. So let me
Sorry. Push there.
let me take a minute and share some of the things that I'm particularly interested in, but let me qualify it with this. The first time that I went out to raise funds for something, I was 21 years old. My father was out of town, and an acquaintance came to see me and said, I am trying to raise money to buy a van to take kids to drug treatment. And they'll go if I can get them there, but I can't get them there. And I need $6,000. I've got to raise $6,000. And I said, by God, I'm going to make this happen. But my dad was out of town, and I didn't know where to go. So I went to the mentors that I have been connected with him. I went and saw Paul Friedlander. Then I went and saw Herman Sarkowski. And then I sat down with Ned Skinner and learned about 501c3. I had no idea what he was talking about. But by the end of the week, I had raised the money. And I met with the man, and I was so, I'll be honest, proud of myself that I had done this good thing. Until about a month later, when I found out that he did buy a van. He bought a van for $6,000 from his brother that was worth about $1,500. And that changed me forever in terms of the importance of not only what is the cause, who doesn't want blind to see, who doesn't want deaf to hear, who doesn't want to end cancer, who doesn't think homelessness is tragic, but the delivery system, the effectiveness of the process must be investigated. Now, our foundation is not very large, relatively speaking. But what it is really, really broad. And it's either a great strength or a great weakness, depending how you look at it. Trust me, I envy a lot of foundations who, with a great deal of justification, can look you in the eye and say, that is a tremendous issue, but it just doesn't meet our parameters. And you're done, because it doesn't meet your parameters. Our foundation doesn't have parameters, because human need doesn't have parameters. Which thing is it? Where is the line? Where below it's not important enough, and above it is, and who gets to make the line? Well, every individual has a right to do that. I don't mean to be disrespectful. For us, we're not capable of drawing the line. If it is a human need, if it is an opportunity to elevate, if it is a chance to bring the light in the darkness, we want to be part of it if we can. And as I said, we're not a huge foundation. We've made $1 million gifts, but we make a lot of $100,000 gifts and $50,000 gifts and $25,000 gifts. And what we try to do is make the money always only a piece. Because what we're giving is us. And where we have found a great ability to do that is with the men and women who work in these organizations. The person in the cubicle staring at a screen for 8 hours a day that's affecting the delivery system of Alzheimer's support, letting her know that she matters, that it's changing lives, giving her permission to be proud of what she does. And so our foundation goes to these organizations, pays for a catered lunch, brings tickets from the Majestic Bay, our movie theater in Ballard, and simply thanks them and honors them. Because we all need and deserve it. I don't try to repeat myself too much, and I'm going to say something I've said a few times, and my wife reminds me to not do that, but I haven't spoke to this group. And it's just this simple, you guys. We live in a world where we're told we can recognize our heroes by their uniforms. And you bet that police officer who takes a bullet for somebody they don't know is a hero. And the woman firefighter who runs into a burning building, absolutely. And the men and women of the military, whether you agree with the cause or not, who put their lives on the line are heroes. And some people think the guy throwing the ball 80 yards is a hero. But the uniform of a hero to us, it isn't worn on the outside. It's worn on the inside. It's worn in simple acts of civility, humanity, and dignity. It's how you talk to the wait person when they bring the steak rare when you ask for it well done. It's the patience you have for somebody a little slow crossing the street. And it washes back into your whole life. And so what we try to do is meet with as many of these people as we can. I have the luxury of the time and the ability to bring them to my office, to sit across from them, to look them in the eye, to listen and thank them, and never make them feel that I am doing them the favor to listen to them, to make the request. They're giving me the opportunity. They're giving Marleen and I information and an opportunity. Now, you guys are working with a lot of different folks. And most of them are, it's such a nice way of saying it, high net worth people. And every one of them is an individual. And some of them are full of spirit and heart and hope and soul. And some of them validate themselves by how big the number is. And it's not our right to judge or criticize any of that. You have a golden key to a door. And if you can help open that door, you are not responsible for their decision to walk through it or not. But once you've opened it, they can. How many times have we said, oh my God, look at this wealth in the greater Seattle, Bellevue, Mercer Island area, this massive wealth. Well, a lot of these people didn't grow up with philanthropy, and it's not part of what. How are they going to learn? They can learn from you in a respectful, tactful, professional way to provide them the understanding of the opportunity. If it is not of their soul, if it is not of their desire, it is not your obligation to make them change that. Somebody who's got $794 million who chooses not to give more than $10,000 away, if that's what they choose, it is their money. There's no rule that says they have to. What is your obligation? Your professional one and your personal one to yourself? Did I open the door? Did I open the door? Did I explain to them how easy it would be? How effective it would be? How we can help facilitate it legally, tax-wise, investment-wise? How they can even take a piece of their investment portfolio and actually tailor it to environmentally sensitive things? If tobacco is something that is repugnant to them, we can actually invest in ways around that. Let them know the opportunities and things that can happen. And if you do that, if you actively do that in a respectful, timeful way, Whatever they decide to do, you have done your part. Everybody's a philanthropist. And nobody is a complete philanthropist. I would argue that Bill and Melinda Gates, by many measuring sticks, are the greatest philanthropists in the history of the world. Not just in size, but in intent, in diversity, in analysis, in thoughtfulness. And certainly have given away more money than anybody in history. And what happens every day, guys? 5,000 people sit around and criticize, judge, complain, and throw their hands up that the Gates couldn't have given them $50,000? So this can't be about making everybody happy. This can't be about proving that you're a good person. This can't be offsetting the darkness inside us. This has to be just because it's right and it's good. And you guys have been given by your career choice, your career choices, an opportunity to not just pay lip service to this whole thing of philanthropy, the human condition, the responsibility each of us has to each other, but to actually take action to open doors. Not to persuade or judge, but to open doors. And so if you have any where you can help each other so much, where this all can be so magnificent, is if you're having a little trouble figuring out how to get that key in there, talk to each other. Learn from each other. Know that you have put the key in, opened the door, and I'm sure it has and will give you great, great joy. And that's why we do what we do. We are humbled, honored, and privileged. We drive nice cars. We live in a nice house. I got a fancy watch. Life isn't fair. It's not all going to work out. All you can do is the best you can every day and look yourself in the mirror and say, how am I doing? And the only real judge is you. Because it all starts with you loving yourself. Like, do you love yourself? Can you say freely and clearly that you love yourself? Because if you can't, figure out why you can't and get there. Because then you're available to love everybody else that matters in your life and to work with your clients. But it all starts with, how am I doing? You know, I'm a lucky guy to be sitting here. A little over 31 years ago, I was laying in the streets, almost dead from drugs and alcohol. That disease will destroy anybody. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter where you were born or how bright you are. Doesn't matter who loves you. It'll destroy you. So we spend quite a bit of area and time in the recovery world. And that's an example where every one of us in this room knows somebody who's struggling. And so we have to make personal choice. If we know they're struggling, do we have a role? What can we do? Are we going to get them sober by ourselves? No. But if something happens tomorrow and they die, are we okay with ourselves? Have we done what we needed to do? And you can multiply that through so many things. We need to be courageous on a daily basis and not have that unfinished business of civility. And it takes time and energy. And that doesn't mean we can't go play golf and go to Disneyland and scream for the Seahawks. But do we take that moment to listen to our heart and follow that direction? And if we do, philanthropy will grow and grow and grow.
Thank you very much, Ken. I just want to recognize, since we were talking about advisors, I wanted to recognize Jack Almo, who works with me with Ken and Marleen. Thank you very much, Jack. Appreciate it. And then I know we want to ask a couple questions, but
Marleen has one more thing.
thank you. Go
to
ahead.
think about.
Oh, yes, and actually Jack and Kevin kind of tie into this. So, and this goes back to the concept of relationship. You know, they invest for us in ways we could never express our gratitude, but at the same time, it is about the relationship we have with them. And one of the things that they did for us is they listened to us. They have the relationship. They found out what's important to us. They hear from a multitude of areas the things we're involved with. They pick and choose and support us in ways which ties us then to them again. And this relationship really bonds us and binds us for longevity. So it is about relationship, and I have to say to both of them, they're taking a table at the Children's Museum breakfast, and if they chose something different, let's say they said, you know, we're not going to do this this year, but we'd like to take a day and go to the Children's Museum, or help with Alzheimer's, or help with recovery, or help with teachers, or whatever it is, and they have that relationship with us, that they can find their passion through our relationship. They have us as family forever. And that's the real call to action here, is to figure out with your client what they care about and find your niche there, because you'll have a hard time getting rid of them if you support them. So look at that.
That's critical. And it isn't about the size. It isn't about the size. But if you know you have somebody you're working with who loves a certain issue, maybe it's preserving daffodils, and you send $100 in there, I mean, if they see your personal actions back. I want to say one thing really quickly. I see our beautiful Bernie Griffin here, the managing director of our beloved Fifth Avenue. And I just want to make this comment relative to the arts, the magnificent Fifth Avenue and the symphony and the ballet and the rep and all of those. Some people go, well, wait, if you're really interested in starving kids, and if you really care about cancer and drug addiction, why are you messing around so much with violins and painting at the art museum? And the way I would answer this is that, look, a great piece of theater or a painting won't cure cancer, it won't end the war, and it won't stop the disparity between wealth and poverty. But here's what it'll do. It'll carve a path of light in your soul so that you can deal with those things. So for all of your clients who are very heavily involved in the arts, don't ever not understand that it is not an option or a luxury. It is a vital link to the civility of the human spirit, and we're all better for it. So I just wanted to share that.
Go STEAM, not STEM, right? Right? STEAM,
All right.
Okay,
I
not
know.
STEM.
Do we have time for one or two quick questions? Okay. Any questions in the audience?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Okay.
Can you speak a little bit about how you passed on the culture and values of philanthropy to your daughters?
Yes.
A lot of discussion about
Yes. You know, it's formal and informal. The informal way is by your actions. The informal way is that on the day of Martin Luther King, instead of a day out of school, you bundle your kids up and you go to the Martin Luther King Park. It's on a Saturday, you go to the zoo, but you also go to the art museum. You engage your kids in activities. You take them to a food bank, and on Christmas Eve, you go to a women's shelter when they're 9 years old and have them help serve food.
Well, and also when we brought up our kids, we had the concept that we would go out 2 nights a week. One night would be for philanthropy, and one night would be a date. And if there was something that came along, like a birthday or something else, that we had to go out an extra night, then we often, and it wasn't for the children to come, we often would say to our children,
very young. In fact, they were the only children in the house sitting at a table, much like you are right now. And we would say, this is what we're doing. We're going to this particular organization who's trying to make money for this. We're going to stay an hour for dinner. The person sitting next to you is just like you. They want to be talked to and in a way that's respectful and listened to. But we promise you we'll be out no later than an hour and a half.
Customize the event
right?
for their
And
for their
so
age.
they knew when they went in, we educated them, and this started, depending on the philanthropy, at about the age of 3. And those are things like Alzheimer walks. You can take your kids on a walk. But they're also sitting at these tables. And yes, we were one of the early people that left early, and we had permission because we had our kids sitting at the table with us, and they knew it was a school night. And so they let us go. We made our donations, and it was an education to the kids from when they were 3 or 4 and on up.
And now in the foundation, the kids will have an amount of money that they have the responsibility to give away, and they need to come to the table and explain why they think it's important. They don't need collective approval. They have the authority, but they'll present to each other, and they have to sit there eye to eye and realize how important this is.
I think we had one more question.
Thank you so much, and I'm so glad this is being taped because I hope this message gets out to so many people. It's absolutely wonderful, and you've spoken so much from your heart. Your comments are much directed to advisors, and there's, I think, several of us in the room that are involved in nonprofits as executive directors. I'm the Washington Trails Association, but on many environmental boards. Do you have any, and I'd like to be on this other side, but do you have suggestions to those of us that are involved in nonprofits?
Yes, I have one major suggestion, and forgive me for not maybe understanding the scope of the whole audience. That may be our error, and I probably should have spoken more broadly. Give your donor an opportunity to say yes easily in the beginning. Come first with knowledge and information and heart, then ask for something very doable where they can succeed and feel valued and appreciated, and trust that it will grow as it should based on that interaction. And tell them why it matters to you, not just your organization, to you, and why you are involved in doing what you're doing. And if they understand clearly that you are thrilled to be interacting with them, regardless of the size, it'll take care of itself. I just got a letter 2 days ago from a PhD of Washington State University giving a report on how they spent the Gottstein gift for equine research this year. They didn't go for 40 pages, they went for 2 paragraphs, and they do it every year and tell us what happened. And it makes you want to stay connected.
Thank you. Thanks, Kenny. Well, thank you very much, Mark. And I just wanted to thank Ken and Marleen for all you do in the community. And thank you so much for this wonderful message today. Thank you.
Thank you all. Wow.
We've had 28 SPAN meetings, and we've never had anybody articulate how to work with advisors. Thank you very much.